Everyone thinks it took place on a Friday, but it didn't. It took place on Thursday. Everyone thinks the battle took place on a cross, but it didn't. At least not entirely. To be certain, it ended there. It raged on there in dramatic and horrific fashion. But let's not miss the fact that the battle also took place here, in a garden. Not this garden, but in a garden called Gethsemane. Now, perhaps when I say the word garden, you have a difficult time imagining it to be a battlefield. Most of us, when we think of a garden, we think of beauty and peace and serenity and solitude. It's a place we go to engage in our thoughts, not to engage with the enemy. It's a place of retreat when we want to be alone, or maybe when we want to be alone with our God. That's true for us, and generally, that was true for Jesus. The Bible tells us that Jesus frequently sought out a solitary place, a place where he could be alone, a place where he could be alone just with his Father in heaven. And while the Bible doesn't specifically tell us, we can certainly imagine that, at least at times, that place of solace, of solitude, was in a garden. But on this night, it would be different. On this night, the garden would prove to be anything but a place of serenity and solitude. On this night, as Jesus entered the garden, he turned to Peter, James, and John and said, "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." His soul was overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And it was that sorrow that brought him to the garden. A sorrow that had welled up inside of him. Peter, James, and John would not understand and certainly could not bear. A sorrow that only his Father could comprehend. Make no mistake, he sees what no one else could see. He sees Satan, the enemy, gearing up for the biggest battle in the history of all creation. He knew that before the battle was over, he would be betrayed, captured, denied, abandoned, beaten, ridiculed, and killed. He saw the cup of God's wrath he would have to drink. He knew the path that would take himself and us back to the Father in heaven would first take him through hell. So his soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. And so on this night, he comes to the garden, not to simply be with his Father or to pray to his Father, but to plead with his Father. He falls with his face to the ground and prays, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." In anguish so deep that it caused his sweat to be tainted with blood, he implores, no, he pleads with his Father saying, Dad, please, is there any other way? Tell me there is another way. But if not, I will do as you have asked. Not my will, but yours be done. Then, at just the right moment, an angel tends to his needs. He stands and resolutely turns his face towards his enemies, the battle and the cross, to finish and accomplish what only he could finish and accomplish. What would cause anyone to do that? I'm sure we could come up with a list of different things, none perhaps any more right or wrong than the other. But maybe the one that makes the most sense is wrapped up in one word: love. To be sure, love for his Father, but perhaps equally as important, love for you and me. Because while standing there in that garden, he saw the enemy. He also most certainly saw you and me. And he saw us in our own gardens of Gethsemane. Gardens filled with sorrow and pain, betrayal and denial, abandonment and isolation. And he didn't want us to be alone. And he wasn't going to leave us there. So you see, the battle didn't begin on Friday on the cross. It began Thursday in the garden. For it was in that garden that Jesus made his decision. He would rather go through hell for you than go to heaven without you.